should be the same mess again at 38. And you know, a lot of these guys, one could beat another one on any given day. So we'll see where those guys fall.
Yeah, and that could even another lineup issue that could get that much more complicated. Talked about Lafayette's guys with Torgensen, Vasquez, and Vasquez. That could be, you know, either Kevin at 32 or Torgensen at 32. One of them at 38, the other at 32. Angel could be 38, 45, and you know, those other guys have to bump up to 45 if Angel drops down. So just have to wait a couple months to probably know how that's going to shake out at 38. Should be pretty exciting though. Again, another one of those where we go into the state tournament not really knowing how that order is going to shake out. 145, got Angel Vasquez, Jackson Oxford, Andrew Bailey, and Mason Smith. Again, we just talked about Angel, state champ, state runner-up. So, yeah, about, he could be here at 45, he may drop down to 38. We got a nice storm coming in. While we were had a couple of conversations with some union folks, and they seem pretty confident that Oxford's going to get down to 45. So he will definitely be a threat there. He's always a big, strong kid. Andrew Bailey, maybe getting some rumblings that he may be moving up. I think he's been at 145, man, every year. He's been 3 years at 145, I think.
I know 2 for sure.
So he may actually be growing up to a 52-pounder. And then obviously see Mason quite a bit, and he will be a good size 145 definitely, and we'll be right there with all those guys based on what I've seen in my rolling around down at ETC with Barton and those guys. So he will definitely be right there in the mix. I guess a couple interesting guys. Derek Wiley's been tough for a long time, trying to finish out his career getting a high school state title. Last shot, we'll see how he does. I'm assuming that he'll be in there at 145. And then Johnson Central guys. Kind of interesting. Not sure how their lineup's going to fall out. We kind of made a guess here, but they always seem to be somewhat of a mystery. You don't really know anything until you see them at the state tournament. So right now we have Gamble here at 45 and Blanton up at 52. We'll see. Another one I'll just point out, Hinahan too, with AJ and Fern Creek lineup. I wonder if they might think they have a shot at repeating and try to encourage guys to be at certain weight classes to maximize their points. So that may affect things as well.
I also heard they had a transfer coming in. And then you hear that? There was a transfer coming in from, who knows? You know how rumors are. We're getting, a Russian kid that, who knows? So we'll see what happens there. I think I would add a little on the Bailey. I was told that a couple weeks ago he had said to someone he was thinking about going 52. If he does go 152, I believe Jordan Kidwell will drop to 45 for Cooper. And then, yeah, we'll see what Angel does. Angel, you keep eating. Take one for the team. Let your little brother, pick his weight, and then you go around him. So we'll see. 152. I actually put a note on here. Barton is the man. Ben Barton last year had a run. I think the year before that he was a solid guy, and I think his offseason work last year. I talked to a lot of people that thought in their mind even before the season started it was his title to win, and he definitely performed at the state tournament. I think he's definitely the guy at 52. You have Blanton there. I believe he'll move up to 52 from Johnson Central. and he seems like he's been around a long time, and he's a junior. So I guess he will be right there in the mix. The other question would be Brady Emerson. He is a monster. I see him all the time, and I don't see him step on the scale, but I mean he's got to be 170. He's, I don't know where he'll go. I imagine he will come down somewhere in the 52. He might even go 45. I don't know. I'll be real curious to see where he goes. You also, we talked about Wiley at 45. You also have his teammate, Tristan Bedita. He will actually be a senior. He's another guy that seems like he's been around forever. I think he will finally be a senior. At 52, he's going to be big. I think him and Wiley, both those guys were pretty large for their weight classes last year, so I haven't seen them in a long time, but I imagine those guys are going to be some big boys looking to make a run. And then the last person I had, I tried to pick some sleepers here. I have Braden Mulcahy at 152. He was a state qualifier last year at 138. Made it to the state tournament. He got out of our region at 138. Region 6 at 138, 132 was tough. The reason I say sleeper, I'm not projecting him to win a state title by any means, but we have him at 23rd now. My guess is a full year in the room. Some of the partners he's got there, he's going to be wrestling with every single day. I would imagine he's going to creep into the top 10. So, we'll see what happens there, but 52 will be a fun weight class to watch.
Yep, I think more and more I've thought about this the last few days when we made the Johnson Central shift. Be another match I would really like to see, Barton and Blanton. I think Keegan Duncan told me that Barton got taken down like 8,000 times last year. He had the award for most takedowns for Trinity last year, but that was because, I don't know, like Keegan said, he was down by like 10 points in all his matches, and he had to come back, so that's why he got all those takedowns. So be pretty interesting because Blanton is a pretty good defensive wrestler, so he's going to come out. You can imagine he comes out, takes Ben down, gets that lead, and tries to stall it out, and would Ben be able to wear him down and take him down to win the match? I think.
And Blanton is quick. Yeah, I agree with you.
That'd be an interesting matchup. Okay, 160. Kind of a repeat from last year. We have Accolade number 1, a Trinity guy right behind him at number 2, Hudson Hydorf, who missed a little bit of time this summer, was just getting back on the mat, but always very good technical wrestler. Number 3, Jonathan Little from North Hardin. 4, Joe Jackson, who I think also had a pretty good run as an 8th grader last year up here with the big boys. Little will be kind of interesting, just with all the changes going on at North Hardin, to see what happens with him. I don't know if they have a coach at this point. I'm sure they'll get somebody in there, but just wonder. I'm sure Joe will still be working with a lot of those guys down there. He's got a good relationship with most of those kids, and they all seem to love him like everybody else around the state. But it'll be interesting to see how that team develops throughout the year, if they're at their peak at the end of the season.
How could you not love Joe Burrows? I don't. Joe, you keep taking those kids to church and do whatever you got to do, all right? My goodness, Joe. All right.
Every day.
All right, I guess 170. Now this is going to be interesting. One is at the top you have Myman. Myman, 2-time state champ from Raleigh, looking for his 3rd title. I think last year there was some shifts in those weights, kind of seeing it, Lampy was in there. I think Lampy had a win over Myman at the Raider Rumble. I was kind of interested where some of those top level guys were going to go. This year, there's talks, and we're gonna have to see what happens here. We have Myman at 1, 2-time state champ, looking for his 3rd. We have Max Andrioni from Woodford County 2. Max is a monster. that's another match. When we were talking about what matches we want to see, you know, a Sheffer versus Logan, this is another match. Max has a motor that won't stop. As far as Johnny, he's won 2 titles. The guy has a way of winning. I've seen him wrestle, and the last 10 seconds, there's that burst, gets that takedown, and he does what it takes to win. So, that's probably one of the matches I really want to see. Coming in third is Max Emerson. For one, Max is an unbelievable kid, and he is the most unorthodox wrestler, I think I've ever seen. I mean, I watch him practice 2 or 3 days a week, and he is fun to watch. I'll see him roll around with big cold Dodd, and then him and his brother look like they're just gonna, fist fight each other. I couldn't imagine what it's like at their dinner table when they're, So Max will be right up in there. I truly believe that Max can wrestle with anybody, just because he'd be a hard guy to prepare for. So out of these 3, I think those are the guys. Everything else, there's some other solid guys in there, but I believe those 3 end up at the top, and it's going to be interesting to see who actually wins the title here, if those guys all stay in that weight class.
Yeah, that's what, it'll be interesting to see where Andreoni ends up. I know he was a 60-pounder in Fargo, and he's wrestling 63 at the Hoosier Open. Cornette was a 70-pounder in Fargo, and he's wrestling 73 at the Hoosier Open. So are those guys going to stay down, or is it just kind of a big event thing? They're wrestling down at those weights and get to the season, and they'll wrestle up. We'll have to wait and see.
182.
182. Number 1, Casey Cornette, we just talked about, from Simon Kenton. Number 2, Alex McIntosh. Number 3, Aaron King. 4, Josh Robbins. Again, a lot. It's kind of interesting at the top with Casey and McIntosh. I'd be interested to see what would happen at 182 if Casey did drop down at 170. Would we see some more guys move to 182? It doesn't have as many proven state level guys in there, so I think that's definitely a weight class right now. It looks like some opportunity for some new guys to jump up and kind of make a name for themselves. But yeah, I think that one, at least the way it looks right now, looks like a weight class that I would feel pretty strongly Casey is a strong favorite there.
I would definitely agree with that. I think between the 70 and the 82, with Myman, Andreoni, Emerson, Casey, McIntosh, I'm real curious to see how that plays out. So I really think even both these weight classes, you take top 4 guys, I really believe that's going to be the 4, and then there's going to be some other guys, that are going to come up and try to compete. But those 4 guys up top are pretty solid on both those weight classes. 195. I actually had a long phone call today about this one. Obviously, we have Frank Crone at number 1, Allgaier 2, Kruger 3, and LaCorey Robinson 4. Frank Crone he's just as tough as they come. I think that, watching him wrestle, it seems like he just takes his time. Okay, I'll take you down. And I watched Casey Cornette last year. He must have been in on a high crowd, I don't know, 2 or 3 times. And I was just baffled, because Casey he's a solid kid and as strong as they come. And, it looked like he just grabbed a hold of the tree trunk. So I think Tyler Frank Crone, if I had to pick a weight, will win this. The only thing I think, though, is Elijah Allgaier. I had a chance to watch him wrestle this year at Michigan, and we'll see what happens. I got to go with Frank Crone at 1, but Allgaier is a handful. Unbelievable kid. It was the first time I was around him, and we'll see what happens at this weight.
Yeah, we're assuming Frank Crone's going to move up to 195. I haven't I've heard also all sorts of things about his weight. I heard, some points last year he was under 182. I've heard he was 200. So who knows what he really weighs? Maybe his weight actually does fluctuate like that. But if he's at 82, that'd be interesting. I know Casey has been working his tail off to be able to compete with Frank Roan this year, but if he decided to be at 82, but that'd be an interesting matchup. Allgaier is pretty tough, but yeah, I think he probably is a step behind Frank Roan, just top 10 in the country right now, so it's tough to beat that. Okay, 220. Departure of Austin Meyer. We finally maybe have some competitive weight class here where somebody else has a chance to win some matches. Number 1, Brandon Reed was a state runner-up last year. Kind of came out of nowhere and made a big name for himself. Number 2, Hamadan from Boone County. Pretty good sized kid, wrestled heavyweight a lot last year, dropped down to 220. Was pretty competitive. Gave Austin a pretty good match in the regional finals. Well, relatively speaking, he was. It was a 6-minute match essentially. He made him wrestle.
Let's be clear, there was no threat there.
No threat, but he actually met someone to actually make him wrestle. So
yeah, that's true. It's funny when when we talk about Austin Myers, it's unbelievable talent. Wish him the best at West Virginia. It's pretty bad when it's to the point, well, he didn't pin me in the first period, and that's, so, and it was a pleasure to watch that kid. I know as a state, we got to watch him dominate for a long time, and, so that just shows you that, if he didn't pin him in the first period, it's an accomplishment, so.
And we will take all the credit for his Flow championship.
Absolutely.
As well, yes.
Austin, if you watch this, you can thank me for that title. It was, good thing you hit that slide by.
Number 3, Connor Sherman from Union County. Number 4, Williams. I'm going to go down a couple more. This actually is a pretty deep weight class with Chandler, number 5, and another guy we got to watch up in Michigan, Colin Portman from North Oldham, number 6. Man, we threw him to the wolves, wrestling heavyweight. Kid weighed in like 210 and wrestled was like 295 was the weight class.
There was some
and
big kids.
He battled and battled all day. Was very impressed with him.
They say he's actually better at football than he is wrestling. So I'm a big fan of him. Getting to be around him and to be around Allgaier, those guys, it was nice to watch them battle. Portman, he mentioned it, bumping up to that weight. I mean, you should have seen some of these guys he was wrestling, and these were top tier kids, and he was battling right with them. And I was joking with him, I can't wait to actually see you wrestle 220. So I know there's been a lot of talk about Reed. I saw him the other day, solid kid. Portman will climb up that list. There's no doubt in my mind. And also Graziani. I saw him at where were we? Team Kentucky, the Scholastic Duels, and he was moving pretty good for a big guy. We'll see what happens with him. I've always been a Graziani fan, so it'd be interesting to see some of those guys. And we actually have, like he said, someone to talk about at 220. It was a given every year. Myers was going to run through it. Now there's some guys here. I believe there's 3, 4, 5 guys here that actually will compete for a title. So we'll see what happens.
If we rank these guys wrestling with cowboy boots on, I pick Graziani.
And possum pod, right? All right, this brings us down to 285. I didn't jot a lot down for this. I believe that we'll get to see the return to Landon Young. He's our 1 spot. Landon Jones at 2, Jorge Mendez at 3, and Sean Sanders at 4. I like Landon here. We didn't get to see him at the state tournament last year. For anybody that's never been around Landon or his dad, they are probably the nicest people you guys would ever meet. You think a big kid like that, he's the most well-mannered, well-spoken kid I've ever been around. And now, I used to get a chance to wrestle with him a couple years ago when he was an 8th grader, but every time I see him and I look up at him, I tell him I don't want to fool with you. So I know he's already signed his scholarship, actually his letter of intent like 2 years ago to the UK. So I hope to see him back out on the mat this year. I'd like to see him win a title senior year. Other than that, I don't have a lot on the heavies.
No, that's probably the one that I'll admit we probably missed the most year in, year out. It seems like there's a lot of turnover in those guys. Placers are usually seniors, so predicting the next batch of top tier guys has been tough. So we'll see how we do this year. On to some team discussion before we finish up. For the individual state tournament, actually let's start with duels. Right now we have Oldham County, the #1 team, second Fern Creek. Kind of interesting how different that is from the individual results. Those two teams pretty solid top to bottom. But as we mentioned a little bit going through the individual rankings, who knows what Oldham County's lineup is. Those guys cut a lot of weight last year, and guys ended up at way different weight classes than we thought they would be. So I wouldn't expect any different this year. They could be moving weight classes around, and could be for the better, could be for the worse, and guys end up in some different spots. And we mentioned a little bit with Fern Creek, are they going to shift their lineup around a little bit with, I know Coach Hitchings had a little bit different projected score than I did at the end of the season last year, and he was right and I was wrong. So he may have some things in mind that would move Fern Creek up on that individual rankings from just cracking the top 10 to more toward the top. I'm not sure. Trinity is, if they can find some role players, I think they've got the studs. They'll be right there in the duels. Union County, again, pretty solid top to bottom, like Johnson. St. X, they are always tough in duels. Seems like they've got a lot of role player guys that they can fit guys in the lineup and be competitive with anybody. So it'll be interesting to see how they shape out during the year. And again, Woodford #7 there. Who knows where their lineup's going to be, so they could improve upon that. They shift some things around as well. Anything you want to add on duels?
No, I think that, we'll see Oldham. Oldham has both Emersons, Nick Wise, Jacob Henley, McIntosh. We'll see what happens. I think out of all these, Union's pretty crafty, moving their guys around, putting them in the best spot to, secure a state title.
One big difference this year, the Coaches Association, I believe, split the duels so that small school and big school won't be in the same location, so you won't get to have that super championship match. So Union will kind of be on their own to beat up on us and Harrison County and small schools. So we won't get to see them battle the winner of the big schools.
Won't have to drive it either.
That's true.
All right.
Individual rankings, Trinity 1, Union 2, I had them almost in a dead heat. And then a little drop off to get to Oldham, Johnson, St. X, and then probably another little drop off there, Woodford, North Oldham, the next group of guys. Have any, AJ would tell us Fern Creek's the sleeper pick.
AJ will tell you a lot.
You have any sleeper team you think might surprise us?
I don't. I think the top guys, I think it's a given. I don't, Cooper, we've got Cooper up at 8th. I think Ryle really fell off this year. Cooper moving up to the top spot, at least in our region. Maybe Lafayette climbing up a little bit. We'll just have to see. A lot of this stuff, it ends up with matchups and who's wrestling who, and I don't know. It's going to be
probably one that sticks in the back of my head, and I keep looking at my numbers just to try to figure something out. I expect Henry Clay to be higher. They've got a number of guys, the Millers, Stork.
That's true.
I'm just trying to think of the names. Go through some of the weights. Richards. Who's the guy that went with us to Michigan? 160. Goodness. But it seems like they've got a number of guys I see in here. Ray Carl Irving and who's his buddy? Oh my goodness. Blake Denny. It seems like they have so many kids that I expect them to be a little bit higher. So that wouldn't surprise me if I see them pop up around the top 10 as well. All right. Well, it looks like we're almost went up to an hour. I thought we'd be able to do this in 30 minutes, but
wow,
not quite. It'll take me about 6 hours to get this uploaded, but we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, this is the first one. I promise we will cut this down. So I imagine this is going to get all kinds of, debate. It's, we were trying to come up with the name of the show, and we thought, one of the first things, who knows? We even joked about naming it. It's not all about your kid. Sometimes with these rankings, it's almost like the parents get a little more worked up about it than the kids do. I get more private messages or texts from parents than I ever would a wrestler. So. Hopefully this gets we get the normal, this is fuel for the fire, and, there's nothing personal about any of this. I wish all these kids the best of luck. I'm a big fan of pretty much all these kids. I've had a chance to be around this now and watch these kids grow up, and, and I've been fortunate enough to, rather what school they go to, we have a facility here that I must have had 30 different schools here, all kinds of kids from different places, and it's really neat to be a part of that stuff and to watch these kids grow up, and regardless where they are, when I see them out on the mat, it's fun to root for those kids. So hopefully you guys like this. Hopefully we can cut the wind down and quit yakking so much and get this a little more dialed in for you, but we'll see what the response is. You guys can send the messages, oh, you're an idiot. What were you thinking? I had a dad the other day when we posted the rankings said, are you smoking crack? I was like, so we'll see what happens. It should be fun. If anything, this is going to get people excited. People are going to talk about it. It's going to get debate. Hopefully it gets people talking about wrestling. So,
all right. Thanks a lot.
All right, guys. We'll see you.